Hello everybody, welcome to Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Today I'll be doing a fast and loose painting on Stonehenge Aqua. This is 140 pound, cold press, 100% cotton. With this video, it's going to be a little different approach. Someone recently posted on the Ranson Disciples Facebook page a fast and loose painting where the trees looks like they were approached with a different technique. They had said that they were following along with a tutorial from somebody else. I don't recall the name, but kind of just looking at the painting, it looked as if there was potentially wet and wet, which I'm going to do, and then after that there was a dry off with kind of a wet tree structures mopped in. And then after that, it looks like there was a dry off and trunk and branches were placed over it. I would almost say that it looks like a approach that Edward Wesson, or who's the one I'm thinking of? Roland Hilder. Looks like a Roland Hilder approach, though I haven't really studied his trees and whatnot. So this will be a quick painting, trying things with a different approach. I will do some generalized wet and wet for kind of background and sky, and then I'll start playing around with those trees. So here's some raw sienna. Structure-wise, I don't have the biggest idea taking place. I'm going to leave a lot of white paper to allow for soft tree washes. And just flatten things out. So that's raw sienna. Let's grab a little bit of ultramarine. And we'll see. Now here, I'm going to do my typical light distant trees, but I don't want to go overboard, so this will just be light and gentle. This is a mixture of ultramarine and light red oxide. In fact, it's probably not showing up that much on the camera. You'll just see those really light marks there. Okay, I'm going to plan out my composition a little bit in this stage. I'm thinking that I'll have far distant tree here, distant tree in this region, maybe a closer tree taking place. Grab some burnt sienna, sorry. Feed in. This will lighten up quite a bit. It's just to kind of just get a little markings in place. Base of that tree, this region. I'll mix that burnt sienna with ultramarine for the shadow for that guy. You'll even allow a few marks here. I'll just grab some Payne's Gray. I'm thinking that's all I want to do in the wet and wet stage. So if you've watched the videos before, you'll know that I kind of do a lot of wet and wet with this, but the experiment here is mopping in some tree structures on a dry paper. So I'm going to pause my camera for a second and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. I just used my blow dryer to dry things off, and now, for the most part, it's dry. There are some areas that are still a little damp. I'm going to take an ultramarine light wash. Paper is dry. It's a little damp right here, so maybe that'll help us see how this wash affects things. And with the squirrel mop, this is a Paul Rubin squirrel mop. You can get it off of Amazon for about $20. Okay, so here's one tree mass. Let's mix a little bit of more ultramarine in. Kind of just scrubbing, pushing this around. A little bit lighter right there. This is more water than paint. Let's connect these back here. Almost want to feed in a little bit of burnt sienna. So I will. Yeah, definitely not my normal style of painting, but it does have some interesting viability to it. What is throwing me off is the wet line right here against this dry ground. So I think I might take a raw sienna wash and drag that down, just because I personally prefer a uniformity in those areas, especially painting this soft. I have a hard time allowing hard edges to take place. And I'll even take a little bit of burnt sienna ultramarine mix to come right down in here. If I was to draw branches at this point, trunks at this point, I would have quite a bit of diffusion taking place, and I'll do that off to the side. This would be underneath a mat, just so you can see what would happen. So it'll diffuse, it'll soften up, and I think what we'll do in this experiment is go across and add some of these in. Do the different trees. I'll do it in the far background ones, and then I'll do a different tonality and crispness for the foreground. Not foreground, but just for the closer tree structures. Hey, Hammy. Oh, Hammy is so close to knocking all my oil paintings over. Okay, so we have that in place. I'm going to do a pause and dry off. Okay, so we did a quick dry off. By the way, these tree trunks and branches that I drew in, you can see immediately how light they are and diffused they are. I'm also using the #1 rigger. This is Silver Black Velvet. So now that we're dry, I'm going to do some closer trunks. I'm going to take the rigger on its side to help ground these guys. They are far back, so I don't know if this is something that you would always want to do, but because of their crispness and sharpness, I feel like they do need to be grounded at that stage. I am now, when I was drying off, I was thinking, let's do another tree line. So I'm just kind of scrubbing in just to show you where I'm going to have that tree line in terms of linear perspective. So let's go back to our mop. Ultramarine blue mixed with raw sienna. So we got a much stronger tree. Grab a little bit more water so I can get some variation within this tree. He is going to rest in that region, so there's our shadow. We're going to put the trunk in, and that'll help it take place. Just kind of scrubbing that around. Let's feed in some Payne's gray. You can even do a smaller tree in here. Let this be the edge of some water. Just using a paper towel just to soften that. Okay. Let's see. Just so we can see at this distance, if I use a darker mixture, and this is our Payne's gray and ultramarine again. You see how some branches will soften throughout. Where it's dry, we have that taking place. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second for another dry off. Okay, and we're back. I'm going to take, while doing that, I thought, why not take a light wash and see what happens if we put a light wash for undergrowth. So we'll put that in. Bring a little reflection down to this water. I'm going to switch to the hake real quick, because looking at this, I'm thinking I want a crisper foreground. And we may even have just a nice solid tree come up from this foreground and lay it over everything. All right, another quick dry off. Sorry for all these pauses. All right, that should be dry enough. Let's grab a little bit with the rigger, mark in some branches and twigs and stuff, part of these foliage. Bring a little bit down for reflection right in there. Let's see. Okay, so then I had said, let's take a bigger, closer tree. So this tree will be in the typical style that I use. Come up. And here I'm just using the hake. Light mix of raw sienna. This is some burnt, sorry, Payne's gray. Darken that up in front. Feed a little bit of variety. This kind of contrasts with our farther objects. I'm going to grab the number 4 rigger just to be able to lay down a little bit more pigment feed some small branches throughout. Just have fun. Try not to repeat patterns next to each other. Excuse me. Maybe I'll give another secondary tree that's kind of bigger right there. With this bigger tree, having this, I'm going to use this number 4 kind of as a mop and see what happens. If we can do that same approach and how that works next to the crisper marks that we did with the hake. It may potentially give an illusion of density, or it may help the other tree's foliage sit behind it. I'm not sure. It's all about experimenting. Give it a little bit of some more dark. So this is the burnt sienna ultramarine. Feeding that in wet and wet. Some variety. Payne's gray. I'm just moving loose, just having fun. I'm going to take a lighter wash that I was using just to kind of shadow this area a little bit more. A little more solid branch structure on top. This branch trunk back here pushes forward, so that should have been lighter and more watered down when I had put that one in. Okay, let me see if there's any other things we want to put in. Let's grab some of our classic dark of ultramarine and burnt sienna. A little bit of foliage down here. Okay, I'm going to pause one last time. All right, so with this, we experimented with doing washes on top of dry paint, changing the tonal value, and then putting solid branches and whatnot over it. And we worked our way forward experimenting with this approach. Definitely a viable method for trees. Definitely outside of the zone that I usually paint within, but I think with practice, some amazing scenes can really start to come to life in a very easy manner. The contrast of this tree against that background, it does have a very interesting aspect to it. My light just turned off. I guess I must have pressed the timer. All right, let me fix that, sorry. 1, 2, 3. So, overall, pretty interesting result. And as always, you're welcome to follow along with any tutorial. I would love for you guys to show me results. I'd love for y'all to ask questions or have comments or different approaches or different artists that you would recommend me check into and different techniques. If you ever follow along with one of these tutorials, you have my permission to sell anything that you paint with the tutorial if you follow it. I want you guys to succeed, I want you guys to sign your name to it, and I want you to be able to buy more art supplies. Along that same vein, down below I have a whole bunch of links. If you're ever interested in buying any of my art, I have an Etsy shop. I also have a Patreon account that helps support this channel. So I would love for you to consider supporting me if you'd like. I also have exclusive content. However, I understand if you guys don't want to follow or do that. I understand. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll be back with more videos. I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.